Hi, this is Nathan. Welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod.
Oh, hi there. I'm Dylan James Weaver, but you can call me Dylan. We were just getting ready for a time of humor, analysis, and discovery. You care to join us? Because you never know what'll happen when you listen to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod.
I'm looking at you, Joe Rogan. Go die.
Alright, all that's getting cut.
Not the Joe Rogan, go die.
No, I'm just gonna... No context, leave that in there.
Put it in the teaser, why don't you?
Hello and welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. I'm Dylan Weaver.
And I'm Andrew Sabo.
Naturally, I assumed.
Good joke. That was good. I like that. You know, I have so many feelings regarding this episode that I thought about leading off the episode with instead of just my name, but you really just knocked it out of the park, so thank you, Dylan.
Oh, thanks, buddy. It's episode 260 of Adventures in Odyssey. The title is... Naturally, I assumed.
There it is. ...
It's written and directed by Paul McCusker. Originally aired February 19th of 1994.
Wow.
And there is no one interesting in the cast because basically the same people as last episode, but we have a fake British boy.
Fake British boy, Darren McGibbs.
And played by Matt Butcher.
For all of our Matt Butcher fans out there.
Yeah, I mean, hey, look, there are probably...
He sounds like a nice guy.
Yeah, you know, he does a nice thing in this episode, I guess. I don't know. He's there. Man, I don't know. What do we want to talk about? Like,
I mean, just off the top, Dylan, I like this more than Truth and Trivia. I forgot how much I loved this episode. I do love Truth and Trivia. I think it's hilarious. But I do think that this is a better piece of entertainment than Truth and Trivia. Like, I just think that this is somewhere close to peak Odyssey for me.
Wow. Folks, when he said he was coming in, when we sat down and Andrew was like, look, I've got thoughts about this episode. We need to start recording quick. I was like, oh, nice. He agrees with me that it's like a fairly flawed episode.
I was literally prepared to have a campaign for the Chalk Squad to get this to 100%.
Oh my word. I can't co-sign that.
Chalk Squad, Dylan will mail you stickers if you rate this 100.
Wow. Oh man. Is this
This is where it ends.
Is this the treasure room part 2?
It must be.
But now the roles are reversed?
Yeah. This is such a... I mean, okay, I can see there are points of it that are flawed that we will get into. But
you don't have to cede ground to me, Andrew.
I'm validating your take, but saying that mine is more valid.
Bad.
Couldn't be just the the dopamine highway that this episode established in my young psyche.
Hey, man, I'm happy for you. It's another one that I am pretty confident I hadn't heard before.
There you go. That must have been so interesting. That's actually my question for you. What was it like hearing this as an adult?
Yeah, it's Odyssey at its sitcomiest.
Yeah.
Like, this could be an episode of literally every sitcom that exists.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why I don't like it.
And that is
much.
why I think it's hilarious.
It is the tropiest trope. Like, there's so little here. After, like, character development and whatnot last episode, like, this one is just like, hey, we're just gonna, like, go through the motions. We have a male and female platonic friend, and a female love interest, and a mysterious person that we're going to project to be a love interest for that female love interest. And we've got the mentor who's just confused by it all. Go. And they literally did every beat that you would expect.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I can accept that as, I don't think that they're reinventing the wheel.
I don't want, I'm not here to dunk on the episode. I had a pretty good time, but, boy, is it
I would say that
it is what it is.
The depth of my appreciation comes more so from the personal connection between the characters and stuff in this way, because it is so tropey and sitcom-y. It almost allows Odyssey to talk about stuff that it normally wouldn't, which is adult relationships.
Sure.
And as a kid, that was very exciting and intriguing to me. And yeah, even as a kid, I when Connie said the whole you're a boy, so naturally you know nothing about girls, even 6-year-old Andrew was like, that's stupid, that's not true. But I know at least one thing about girls, and that's that my sister doesn't like me.
Which sister, Andrew? They've both been guests, so you can name names.
Well, at that point in time, I was sharing a room with Grace, so she's the one that's getting thrown under the bus today.
Oh no, Andrew, who could possibly not like you?
As a roommate? You got 3 new people you can interview for that one. He always listens to podcasts in his back pocket while doing the dishes. Why don't you just use earbuds like a normal person?
Andrew, is there anyone who you've shared a room with for an extended period of time who hasn't been a guest on the podcast?
No, not a single person. But I will say that every person that I have shared a room with for an extended period of time has been on the podcast. That Venn diagram is a circle, my friend. And that's including when Brendan spent a year unintentionally sleeping on my floor. Well, it was intentional. His room was very disorganized.
All right. I'm going to roll the promo, and then we can talk about the real episode.
It's your favorite dynamic duo on the next edition of Adventures in Odyssey. It's a comedy of errors when Eugene starts getting advice from Connie on how to woo Katrina back from a strange new friend named Darren. But when the flowers, chocolates, and other romantic attempts fail, Eugene threatens to confront Katrina with hilarious results. Learn more next time on Adventures in Odyssey.
So I think I may have cracked the code of my inner psyche. I was restricted in watching sitcoms and TV shows, and so this, as the most sitcom-y Odyssey episode, held very high esteem for me, because I could listen to it unlimitedly.
And so this episode, right, was what introduced you to all the sitcom tropes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Whereas I am coming into this episode having lived my entire life
of sitcom tropes, and then
I'm listening to an episode just to do that.
This is like when I watched Ferris Bueller's Day Off after seeing every other movie that it was inspired by.
That inspired it?
I'm sorry, that
was inspired by it.
There it is. Neither of us were correct, but we put our heads together and made a podcast.
Oh man, what a joy. So we open up on a conversation between Whit and Connie. Connie is paying really close attention to when Eugene is leaving, because he always leaves at a certain time so that he can get to the library to see Katrina while she finishes her shift, and so they can walk and talk. And
adorable. Is that not adorable? I don't know. I think that's adorable.
I don't know that. I think the episode gets to a decent place with Connie eventually. I think the beginning feels really.
No, I'm talking about Eugene.
Eugene. Oh, yes. I thought you were saying Connie laying all this out. Isn't that cute? And I'm like, no, it's kind of annoying.
No.
They're really leaning into Connie's nosy and can't mind her own business to start this episode. It does get better, but it is, yeah. But no, yes, Eugene leaving to go and walk with Katrina is cute. Big fan. And
Connie's impression of Eugene is pretty funny.
Uh-huh.
It always made me laugh a lot.
For sure. For sure. But so Eugene comes downstairs and Connie starts kind of poking him about it. And he's like, no, Trina and I are just friends. And Connie's like, Trina?
Which I lied. Trina does come back.
It's there twice. We'll keep track, folks.
Yep. The Trina tracker. Oh, shades of 2006.
What a dark pool.
Yeah, thanks. Oh boy.
And so
Natural disasters aside.
I don't know. Eugene kind of brushes it off, and they're trying to do this whole thing, and Wade is just like standing here, exhausted by it.
Well, because he doesn't think anything twice of, Connie brings up his concerns and Whit doesn't really care. He's like, oh, I'm just taking him for what Eugene is saying, which is true and probably the right course of action.
Right, contrary to what I yelled at Whit about doing last episode.
Exactly. Like, in some ways, Whit at his most sitcom-y is his best. He just comes in at the end and admits he made a mistake. It's great.
That is true. We have a fallible John Avery Whittaker in this episode.
Give it 100%.
So we leave that scene, I guess. It's a conversation with Eugene and Katrina, and they're walking and talking, and it's cute.
They're at a cafe.
Oh, are they actually? Okay.
Yeah, so
they
it
are
cuts
not walking
to them.
and talking.
It cuts to them after mid conversation talking about some random trivia fact that Katrina read in the paper, and she's just doing a smart person ramble with Eugene, which
Correct.
Great, adorable, love the restaurant sounds, the idea that they just stopped into their little small relatively terrible college coffee shop and are talking about stuff that interests them is very cute to me.
Yeah, I agree. Eugene says a great line of our conversations contain the most stimulating conversations I have anywhere, period and full stop.
Yeah, that is really nice.
It is maybe the hardest I've related to Eugene.
That's fair. I can respect that.
It was just like, wow, that is so much my sentiment when I am into someone. It is like, I just want to be talking to you.
Most of the time.
And you alone.
Yep. It so happens that I like talking to you about everything.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I didn't know we could go 6 months into knowing each other and never bring up movies.
Yeah.
But that happened.
So here we are.
Because there was so much other stuff to talk about.
Exactly.
What a bizarre thing. But yeah.
A bizarre beast, if you will.
And then, right, as he's saying that, because Katrina throws out, oh, I'm boring you with all this trivia, which is when Eugene's like, no, this is the most stimulating conversation I ever have. And then this is where, and then he starts blushing.
Yeah.
And Katrina calls him on it, and he tries to cover.
He says that my metabolism has increased, or he talks about the fans, like, oh, it's rather warm in here. And she's like, actually, I thought it was rather cool. And he's like, oh, yes, well, my metabolism is,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's something I would do. That's probably the hardest I've ever related to Eugene.
You just pull the POTS card. You can get away with anything if you just blame it on your condition.
This is the episode where Andrew dies.
Because he has POTS, he dies.
Because I have POTS. Naturally, I assumed he was dead. He passed out.
So there's this. Yeah, she's
got a 5:00 meeting with a man.
She refers to it as an engagement.
Yes.
With does she say a man?
No, she doesn't say a man. She just says with him.
I hate
to keep him waiting.
I hate to keep him waiting. I've got a 5:00 engagement, and I'd hate to keep him waiting.
Yeah. And also, don't come by the library anymore.
Right.
Because it makes me late. Right. Which is really cute when it's viewed in proper context.
Sure. She says it a little too sterilely.
No, she does completely sterilely.
Yeah.
Which
So I do feel for Eugene here.
yeah.
But yeah, and then I at this point in my notes, I wrote, "Oh, great, we're gonna have a dumb jealousy storyline because Katrina's meeting with a professor." I was basically right.
You were basically right. You know, he's a professor in England, I suppose. He sounds very intelligent for a child.
Our next thing is Eugene like bashing in a computer angrily,
Just
which
screaming.
it is fun for him to take out his frustrations on a computer. I do enjoy that moment.
You must really hate this episode.
Yeah, that's what I hate this episode so much. I had a good time with this episode.
No, you said as much.
I just,
It's tropey.
yeah, well, or there's just like it didn't all click for me. But I think it gets better as it goes.
For sure. Oh yeah. No,
but-
I think that I didn't like this as much, and then at the very end where Wit gets caught up to speed and they all just laugh about it, like that's where I was like, oh, I actually really like this episode. Like, Wit didn't come in all condescending as much. I mean, it's not a great Wit episode, because he definitely has his moments, but I don't know. It definitely left a nice, warm, sitcom-y feeling in my tummy.
But so amidst like bashing in his computer, Connie shows up and I don't know, I can't decide if this is a very poorly written Connie episode
Yes.
at this moment, or if it is the most accurately written Connie episode, because she sounds like an annoying little child
Yeah.
in this scene. But she kind of is.
Yeah.
Like, it might be the one moment where we actually have Connie kind of acting her age in this context, especially
because
like
it makes sense because it's adult relationships, romance,
Right.
tears. This
right,
isn't
and
a child.
and she's in high school and like has a different view of it. Has only been on one date at this point, right?
Yep. Unless
Shout
you
out
count,
to Jeff. Unless you count Jimmy crushing on her, but like
didn't Rodney give her flowers at one point?
that's to
later.
come. I mean
Yeah,
that's
later.
the same episode that Mitch is in because that's the whole bit there. Haha, we're played by the same person. What if we both loved her?
Didn't we covered that with Novacom? Didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Wonderful. Go back and listen to it.
But the thing, I don't know. It's where I'm like, I kind of think that this is like, this isn't necessarily like that Connie's unlikable, but it's not necessarily bad writing.
No, exactly. Like I've heard women in real life say those exact words to me about you're a boy, you don't know anything about girls.
Buddy, I can. So this line,
Yeah.
it comes up in the when Eugene's memories are getting downloaded in Eugene Returns.
Yeah.
That 3-parter that we talked
yeah,
about.
yeah.
So I know this line. As soon as the setup happened, I was like, Connie's about to say the line. I paused it. I wrote the whole thing down from memory, and I freaking nailed it, man.
Wow. Way to go. I'm impressed.
Which is you're a boy.
Excellent
Which
use.
naturally means you don't know the first thing about girls. I'm a girl, which naturally means that you know everything there is to know about boys and girls. But the thing I didn't know, because I've only heard it in that snippet, is that Eugene is mocking her.
Yes.
Which this episode makes very apparent, but the flashback does not.
No.
And so I thought this was a weird moment of them being in agreement.
Nope. But I can see it, and honestly, he doesn't really refute it in the way that, like, he lets it go really quickly. He's like, what? And then it just continues on.
Yeah. But yeah, so that is fully glued in my mind.
Yeah.
But he does, like, Connie does kind of wear him down, and it hits this point where Eugene's like, well, I genuinely don't have anyone else I feel like I can turn to. And here Connie is, like, throwing herself at me to help out in this.
Yeah.
And, like,
Well,
it
that's
does
what
make
Connie
sense
says.
that and it does make sense that she would have a better perspective, like, or
You're
have a
not
different
utilizing
perspective.
your resources, Eugene.
Which fair. So she volunteers her services, and they go up to Whit's office, and he fills her in on everything. How
There is some sexual tension between Connie and Eugene this episode.
Oh, I disagree.
No, not in a bad way, but in a way that I did not pick up on as a child. Just like the line reading is so
like they
interesting.
have good chemistry, but it never feels. I wouldn't go as far as to say like sexual chemistry or like romantic chemistry.
Yeah.
Like it does just feel like
Almost like familial chemistry.
right, or like they are friends who are getting closer.
Yeah.
Because that does kind of between like last episode and this episode, it does kind of feel like, oh, hey, these are characters who are growing now, and like we can, their relationships with each other are going to grow.
Exactly.
And
why I love this episode so much.
and so so there's this whole thing. Connie has the absolute worst idea after Eugene lays it all out, which is get her a gift. Girls like gifts.
Yeah, that's really bad. I mean, yeah.
Andrew, how much relationship advice did you take from this episode?
Not a lot in that respect. If anything, I took the Eugene approach of say all the words and end up saying the thing you originally planned to. I would say that probably I didn't take any of the actual relationship advice, but did follow closely in the relationship chaos and fumbling. Verbal fumbling, to be sure.
Uh-huh.
I wasn't a big, I like gifts. Gifts are great. Like, I think it's special and wonderful, but it's not, like, my top love language by any means.
Sure.
And I don't really, I've never really been into anybody that was super big on gifts.
Yeah, I'm going to level with you. I do kind of judge people who that's their number one love language. And
It is the easiest to judge.
I feel bad about it in some extent, but I'm also like... Well, I'm like, how in the world could you value like something physical over like time spent? Or I'm like, here's an object, or here's a couple hours in a car, and I'm like, I'm taking a couple hours in a car every time, absolutely, hands down.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
And that obviously my own things, but. Yeah, I do always kind of side eye people who are like, my main love language is I like stuff, and I'm like,
I like gifts.
Do you actually like that person then, or do you just? And that like it's not to say like I don't like. I love and appreciate a very well thought out gift.
Yeah, no, I would say that the best gifts are the ones that you feel the least bad about receiving, which are like oftentimes not the biggest gifts or the most important significant gifts. I don't know if I ever
felt bad about receiving a gift.
Oh, I did all the time.
Interesting.
Terrible. Yeah, I feel like a burden. Why are you providing for me?
See, that's not a thing I have. I do have some friends with that thing.
Hey, that would be me.
And I always, I have to layer on the caveats if I want to give them a gift, because then they have to spiral and feel like they have to return it in some way. Which is why I no longer give Andrew gifts.
Please. Unless I give you a gift, then you can spiral and get me one if you want.
But I won't.
No.
That's the thing.
No, I would say that gifts are like, I think that it's a difficult love language to dissect, because like an act of service could be a gift in a lot of ways, where you're providing somebody.
Right, but that's its own love language.
Yeah,
it's an
no,
act of
exactly.
service.
But like, say, okay, like you would think somebody would feel proportionately more loved based on the relevance and the, not necessarily the grandiose nature, but perhaps the intentionality put in the gift.
Intentionality, effort, absolutely, which is part of the problem with what Connie does here, which is she goes for the surface level, obvious, like just the default gifts, and it's like, what are you doing?
Very impersonal.
Yeah,
and Eugene knocks it out of the park when he gets with the essays, and then she's like, no, what are you doing?
He does knock it out of the park as far as that being a gift from the heart. He doesn't knock it out of the park in that he doesn't actually communicate any of the things that he is intending to.
Oh, yeah, no, and he does it at a bad time. He's forcing
Yes.
himself upon her, almost, like, it becomes more about him giving the gift than it does about her receiving it, which is always the problem with gifts.
Yeah.
And love in general, with a lot of things.
Yeah. So, right. So, looping back to the scene we're currently in, though, we've got, them rehearsing what he's going to say. It can't just say, like, here's the gift. You got to, like, say something from the heart. And so he's practicing that. And in walks Wit in a door creak that lasts for 2 minutes.
At
he's
least
just, like,
90
standing
seconds.
there.
Yeah.
And, witnessing this role playing. And then as they leave, all flustered, he goes, huh, Eugene and Connie. But what about Katrina?
And Dylan beat his head into a wall.
Yep, no, that's true. Andrew can see the blood running down my face still.
Poor guy.
It's very thin.
Donate to the GoFundMe for Dylan's forehead.
Yeah. And so, so they, after Katrina has said, hey, don't catch me at the library when I'm, like, trying to leave, Eugene does that.
Catches her at the library when she's trying to leave. Catches her in the mid-walk.
Right.
He can't, to her appointment.
Yep. He can't get the words out, and then just, like, shoves a book of Emerson's essays at her, which she does genuinely appreciate.
Yeah.
And then needs to leave immediately to go see Darren. And I went, Darren, first name, not a professor. She's probably tutoring this guy.
Let me see it. Is it in your notes?
100%.
Is she tutoring him? Wow. Dylan, you've read it like a book. Congratulations.
Yeah, look at me figuring out child's media.
You are smarter than a fourth grader.
Oh, man. It's because there's nothing, like, fresh here from, like, the story strokes. Mm-hmm. So when they go and talk, he goes back and talks with Connie and kind of explains the thing, and she's like, well, does she, like, he's like, she didn't respond well. And she's like, well, at least she knows what you think, like, how you feel at this point. And Eugene's like, oh, no, I didn't do that either, which so relatable.
Yeah, no, I've been there. That's happened. You're like, I'll just do it later, I guess.
I am going in with the intention to reveal something deeply personal about myself and my feelings towards you, and whoops, there it goes. I'm not doing it anymore. Woohoo! We love that, right?
Yep. So for me, it's two polar opposites. It's I either never say it or I say it at the worst possible time in perhaps the worst possible way, which typically involves
maybe I
word
should
vomit.
give that a shot.
Hey, man, you might have more failed relationships, but at least you'll have relationships. That's fair.
Oh, boy.
You've got plenty of very meaningful, fulfilling friendships. Romance is not what this life is about.
Amen?
Unless it's between me and the earth. I am very romantically inclined towards the earth.
Boy, do I have the Odyssey fanfic for you. You gotta pay to get that joke, folks.
It's the Avengers. But McAllister Park.
Oh, man.
And Andrew is dripping.
So Connie's like, well, you gotta do, I guess this is the point where she lays out the cliche gifts, where she's like, well, if you're trying to communicate that you love her, you gotta do it with flowers and chocolates.
Yeah.
That's what girls like.
Candy and flowers. There's no way that you could possibly not think that you are in love with her if you get her candy and flowers.
I would like this so much more if they did that and then they smashed cut to Eugene coming back and being
Yeah.
like she didn't like the candy and flowers.
Yeah.
That would be good.
That would be
that
very
I
funny.
would enjoy.
That's a better joke, for sure.
Because instead, we have to suffer through this
Eugene.
scene
Oh
where
my
Eugene
God.
at 7 a.m. on Katrina's day off shows up at her apartment with carnations. Weird flower to like carnations feel like a plant and not like a bouquet flower.
Yeah, you typically, I mean, you know, your tulips, your lilacs, your roses. I mean, roses would be the most direct, but they probably couldn't get the trademarking rights for roses for this episode.
For sure. And so, right, so she brings carnations, and she is allergic. I'm allergic.
I'm allergic to nuts.
Macadamia nuts. I'm allergic.
Allergic. Oh, my stars. Yeah, no, Katrina's dying in front of
Yeah,
in
yep.
front of Dylan, or in front of Eugene.
We're one and the same this episode,
In many ways.
except that I wouldn't take Connie's dumb advice.
No, you wouldn't take Connie's time
One,
advice.
I have better friends than that.
Yeah.
Like, there are people who I would go to who would give me good advice. And who do give me good advice. Shouts out if you're listening, people.
Notice
I'm
he's not
not-
shouting at me.
I'm not naming names. Yeah, no, Andrew doesn't give good advice. Let's be I don't
I'm the best therapist, but I give terrible advice.
Here's the thing, I haven't ever gone to Andrew for relationship advice
Rightfully so.
because I look at his relationship.
you get the outside. I mean,
If you want to return the flip off, now's your opportunity, Andrew.
that's okay. That's okay. I'm just gonna stick that deep down inside and deal with it tonight before bed.
No, I don't know. No, I need you to brush it off, Andrew. You
Brushing.
need to understand that this was a joke.
Oh, of course. No. Yeah. No. I mean, yeah. Relationships are. I feel like if anything, this podcast and this episode in particular has showed that like there's two very different approaches present at this table, and that is perfectly okay because neither of them are correct. Yeah, no.
Look, neither of us have been married for 80 years, so what can we say?
Exactly.
Both of us are failures.
Well, and so I will say, I met a man who was in his late 70s working on a roof, like he was like roofing, through a missions trip type situation. And I asked him what his secret to marriage was, because he married his wife when he was 18. And I was like, and he said, commitment? I don't know. I stretched a lot. And then that was it.
Well, there you go. That's good right there. We have the answer, folks.
Commitment and stretching.
Oh man. So so right, she's allergic to the carnations, and she's trying to not eat sweets so the chocolates don't do her any good, and she like slams the door
She's
to go
breaking
like
out in hives.
inject herself with an EpiPen.
Yeah.
And Eugene just has to leave in shame.
Yeah.
And comes in to yell at Connie, and Connie's like, "Yep, well, here's my last piece of relationship advice. Anything can change."
I've given that advice in there.
Look, I kind of don't hate that advice for where Eugene is at this point.
No.
I think that advice becomes very, very bad if you have already expressed your feelings explicitly and the person has said no.
Yeah.
Then don't operate under the anything can change thing.
Yeah.
But in this moment, I don't hate it.
No.
Like, there's still and it helps that, like, we are a third party witnessing this. And so we know that the central conflict here is just poor communication and not actually, like, incompatibility or a lack of desire.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know that you can have that perspective from the ground level, but
No.
still, I am like, okay, Connie, you're like, that's fair enough.
Well, yeah, and she says, like, relationships are dynamic, which is very true. The minute you think your relationship is going to stay the same, it will change. And that's okay, because that's what people do. So I think that there is some value to what she's saying. Unfortunately, it came after the flowers and chocolate and the making Eugene change everything about himself so that Katrina likes him bit.
Right. Right. Yep.
Thanks, Paul McCusker.
Yep.
Way to portray women well.
And then, and then Eugene's like, well, look, do you want these flowers and candy? Because she's got no use for them. And Connie takes them and, like, responds in a very, like, sincere, heartfelt way, which witnesses, and that's just going to build to his whole thing.
Yep. Yeah, and he gives another, like, weird monologue where he's just like, what? Things are just so strange around here.
Yep.
I'm wit. Then he walks off.
You nailed it, Andrew. You nailed it in one.
Thank
Good
you.
work. And so, yeah, and then Katrina walks in.
Yeah.
And she's talking to Connie, and she's like, hey, like, I want Eugene to meet Darren.
Mm-hmm.
He's coming over. And Connie's like, well, I oughta. And they, like, get in this whole thing where, like, Connie's very mad. And Katrina is the best human being. She
responds
is so gracious.
You know what? She's used to working with children.
She really nails it, but, like, fair. But, like, she also, like, this is where it slightly subverts the tropiness.
Mm-hmm.
Because what should happen is that, like, Eugene should be the one to come with her, to her with this stuff. He should be mad. Her feeling, like, the way his response should be so blown out that Katrina now hates him.
Yeah.
And, like, it's going to take another season for the will they won't they to continue.
Yeah. Very friends.
Instead, you have a really, like, Connie jumps to all these conclusions, and Katrina just kind of rolls her eyes
continually
and is like, here, meet Darren.
Yeah.
Like, she is sympathetic and understanding to how they got to this point. And she's not, like, upset at Connie. She's just like, come on, dude.
You're dunking on yourself.
Right.
You don't need me to jump on. Like,
yeah.
You've already tripped and fallen down the
Right.
stairs.
Well, and Connie has, I don't know, best line of the episode, maybe best line of Odyssey. Like, it's so funny. But
perfectly ingrained in my mouth.
Where
or in my mouth, in my mind.
where Connie asks, or Connie just says, I was just rehearsing for a play. And Katrina goes, what play? And she says, the large foot pushed deep into the mouth. Which, Andrew, if ever there was an Odyssey tattoo for you to get.
The large foot tattoo.
Like, that's perfect for you.
Yeah, it's my
because you
favorite
do
episode.
that all the time.
Large foot pushed deeply into the mouth. I'll get it tattooed underneath my neck or something.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we can workshop
like
where it's gonna go.
A chest piece, if you will.
Yeah, whether we
Place
do it
foot here.
right, whether we do it in pictographs or we do it, just in text or whatever. But I do
hieroglyphs.
Yeah, but I do feel like that tattoo would suit you.
Oh, and I'm so not above getting it tattooed because it is like one of the most iconic lines from the show in my mind. Like what you said earlier about the I know everything there is to know about girls bit.
Yeah,
I am with this, where I knew I knew exactly when it was coming, and I was like, oh man, it's still so good, epic.
Yeah, and so the other thing that's good here is so you have Connie really like leveling with Katrina about Eugene's fears, and they have like a pretty decent exchange, and then Katrina sends Darren to go meet Eugene.
Which is so cute.
It is. This scene is incredibly cute because he walks in and he's like, hey, I'm not from around here. Do you know someone who would be good to tutor? And
at the college.
Like to tutor me. And Eugene just starts like praising Katrina left and right and recommends her. And he's like, oh yeah, I actually already know Katrina. I'm Darren, by the way. And Eugene's like, oh, I'm an idiot.
Darren? The Darren?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, it's hilarious.
The moment where Darren walks in, too, when Connie and Katrina are, like, going back and forth, and Katrina's like, and he walks in and he's like, who has a crush on me or whatever?
Yeah. Well, and especially at the end. Oh, no, he says, Darren says that we're rivals or something to Eugene,
he does
which
say,
is so funny.
He does say that
I never picked up on that before.
It's
like,
good.
we're
I love
apparently
a precocious kid.
Yeah.
Darren should come back.
Yeah, please bring him back. Let's ditch.
Don't age
Maury.
him at all.
No,
but bring him back.
Bring him back. Yep.
Just screw up the Odyssey timeline even more.
Well, I mean, who's paying attention that still listens to New Odyssey?
Yeah, exactly.
Colleen is the only person that would know. Focus, you've only got to take one person out.
Don't give them that option. They might take it.
Yeah, no. If you come for me, I will come for all of you. You take one sister, I take your family.
But yeah, they have a very nice exchange here. And yeah,
And like
Katrina kind of is like, oh, I didn't realize like you were insecure in what we have.
Yeah.
So like my bad for not communicating that better. And I'm like, Katrina, like you don't need to apologize, but I also do appreciate you like, yeah, just trying to meet in the middle and whatnot.
There was the bit like the running gag where Eugene didn't say how he felt to Katrina the first time, and he said that like, oh well, she didn't ask, and then Then Katrina says the same thing when Connie's talking to her about how Eugene feels. She's like, oh, well, he didn't ask.
Yep.
And so, coming back together to this kind of like cataclysmic, rapid fire relationship repair for communication. I shouldn't have assumed. You shouldn't have assumed. Wow, this was really bad.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. We both are owning our own responsibility in this collective conflict.
Yep. And then Whit walks in and is like, well, naturally, I assumed. Coworkers shouldn't date, and then everyone laughs hysterically.
Yeah. Oh, I thought that because and the thing you said, and I'm Whit, and so.
Yes, and I do appreciate Whit being dumb at the end of the episode is funny, even if like I don't love the way in which he's dumb. I like that he gets to be dumb.
Yeah.
And I do love the final note of everyone laughing.
Exactly, where it's like this. If this was Friends, if this was How I Met Your Mother, if this was any other sitcom, they would probably try and milk this conflict because they're not necessarily rooting for people to be the best versions of themselves.
Sure. Yep. Fair.
So there is something about it that I do really appreciate, that like Katrina is willing to forgive immediately Eugene and his flusteredness and his mistakes, and as well as Eugene apologizing and Connie and all of that. So yeah, no, it's just a good time, and it's got a lot of jokes in it. So many jokes.
Yeah. It's a pretty pleasant episode, even if it feels a little paint by numbers at times.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it does make some interesting choices, and I just want to commend the show so much. Like something that didn't really hit me until this episode, but it's like they had an easy quote-unquote path in front of them of just wait until like Connie's graduated high school and get her and Eugene together.
Yeah.
That's what everyone wants.
Yeah.
And they took a different path than that is, in my opinion, way better.
Infinitely better.
Because we don't get years and years of this, like, will they, won't they, opposites attract, these two people, like, go from hating each other to kissing each other.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need that with Connie and Eugene. And I love the, like, especially, I think I just always took it for granted that, like, of course they don't end up together. But if you're listening at the time, you don't know that. And you're trained to expect one thing. And it is, like, the thing that people, like, talk about on forums and whatnot is, like, man, I always wanted Connie and Eugene to get together, and I am so glad that we have like male-female platonic relationship represented on a very conservative show that you wouldn't necessarily expect to do that.
No. Well, and then I think that it kind of flies under the radar because of that. And I just think that what they are able to do by expanding the world through adding Katrina is so much more interesting than just taking Connie and Eugene and mashing them together in a bunch of different ways to make more money.
Right, agreed. And I think it's so... I think that, just these two episodes being written the way they were was done with a very clear intent of, we have an episode that introduces Katrina, and this is the episode that fully erases the idea that Connie is an option. Because they're really underlining it. Connie is fully rooting for Eugene and Katrina.
Yeah.
Like, not in like an insincere, I am rooting for this because it's the only way I can be close with this person, which is the thing I've never done, is get really invested into a friend's relationship because I am secretly in love with that friend. Couldn't be me. But the other component is like, everyone laughing at the absurdity at the end of the episode of the idea that Connie and Eugene would date.
Yeah.
Is just like, they are fully establishing that this is absolutely absurd. And I imagine that there were audience members who did not receive that well.
That's fair.
But we have the benefit of looking at it with retrospect and just being like, man, I'm so glad that was the decision that was made. Well, and in a way that feels organic and not like, oh, we wrote ourselves into a corner and we've got to change, or we're introducing this character to be an obstacle between like our two people finally ending up together. Like, it is truly, I don't know if Katrina was like, the official guides do not give like a lot of insight here. I don't know if Katrina was introduced with the idea of that being the end game. That those two, that like Eugene and Katrina have to get together. But I do think that it was very clearly set up as this is putting the nail in the coffin for Connie and Eugene. Yeah. Like, maybe Eugene and Katrina break up over the years, but we are establishing that like Eugene has a romantic interest, and it's not Connie, and it's never gonna be.
Yeah, and it couldn't be the farthest thing from Connie. Like, which is, and I think better, more interesting. Like, it allows us to get characters like Connie and or like Katrina and Eugene, and just even thinking within the context of this show, like all of the stuff that we talked about with Green Ring Conspiracy, talking about Eugene and Katrina as adults and making all those decisions and everything like that. Like, that feels very organically grown from this kind of origin, which I do really appreciate, and I'm excited to look more into.
Yeah, the fact that this relationship manages to transcend
three Housemiths, or I'm sorry, three wits, only one Housemith.
Three wits, Will Ryan's departure from the show, and a recasting of Katrina.
Yeah.
And like
potentially Will Ryan's death.
Right. I mean, we'll see how they address that. But like, it is. I don't know. I'm really excited to continue covering this, and I'm happy with this. And my last note is just the fact that because I knew what was going to come in and object and whatever, and I was gritting my teeth for this to be a Connie, you're a Christian and Eugene is not confrontation.
Unequally yoked.
I was really like anticipating that as the thing that was going to come up, and I'm just like, oh man, it's going to be so rough to listen to. Yeah. And the fact that what we end up with is Wit just like dumbly being like, you shouldn't like, I've always had concerns about people like dating coworkers, but I don't know, maybe you guys will find a way to make this work. And then they all
really
just laugh
none of my
at him.
business.
Right. Like, I love,
yeah,
I love that Wit's like, I guess I gotta like, bring this up,
But please stop me if this is too uncomfortable.
Right, exactly.
Clearly, I am pissing myself while speaking.
Yeah. I love a
a nice humble,
right.
uncomfortable wit.
Right. A wit who is not bold.
Yes. A meek wit.
Yeah, a meek wit. Hey, blessed are the meek. They will inherit the earth.
I know a man who wrote that. He lives in my heart.
Aww. Any last thoughts, Andrew?
Oh, this is stupendous. No, I really loved it, and I remembered this episode very clearly. But when we were getting ready to cover it for the show, like, I kind of glossed over that this is the next step after Truth and Trivia and Trina. But as a child, this was the one that I really liked, and I thought it was just so funny and cool, and I appreciated that it was older adults. It wasn't the kids that were doing this. It's all about adult romance and adult relationships.
Right.
So yeah,
another episode where it's like there's a child in here barely. Like we
just
really
to rival Eugene.
We're really unconcerned with this.
Yeah,
and they have a good thing. I think they strike a clever balance of like we are trying to model what good relationships look like while also making them so much older that no kid is going to go to their parents and be like, see, I should be allowed to date off of this.
Exactly.
Like they nail that balance quite well. Where it's like, okay, we're establishing good role models who, once again, I would like to establish, are not currently Christian. Big fan of that aspect of this as well. But like that, this is not something that a kid's going to be able to one-to-one apply to his life, but they're still going to gain something from it. I don't know. We'll see how that thought develops over the episodes, But for now, I'm just glad that we're covering these, man.
I'm a big appreciator of this album. Obviously, Passport to Adventure was one of the ones that I owned, but we've covered now Truth and Trivia, Aloha Oi, Part 1, 2, and 3.
And there's a couple George Barclays on this?
And Naturally I Assumed, and A Prayer for George Barkley. I don't think we covered... Yeah, we didn't cover Bad Hair Day or Boy Who Cried Destructo. Yeah,
someday,
but did we cover A Time for Christmas? Because that's a Christmas episode.
We didn't, unless no, we didn't cover that one. Nope.
All right, well there you go.
Yeah,
2023. I'm looking at you. We gotta finish this out.
Yep. All right. And anything you wanna plug here, Andrew? Any?
Watch a movie with somebody you love.
Yeah.
That's my plug.
Hey, that's always my plug. And with all that being said, we will be back next week for episode 266. It began with a rabbit's foot.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Wadfam Chalk Pod is a presentation of the Lidditz Podcast Co-op. This show is a fan podcast and has no official affiliation with Adventures in Odyssey or Focus on the Family. As such, the copyright is ours under Creative Commons. Follow the podcast at WadFamChalkPod on Twitter and Instagram, or email us at wadfamchalkpod@gmail.com. Naturally, I Assumed was hosted by Dylan Weaver and Andrew Sabo, and edited by Dylan Weaver. And I'm Nathan Haverstick, hoping you'll join us again next time for more of the Wadfam Chalk Pod.